Good morning. Good morning. Much better. Family and friends, welcome to the summer 2026 Baylor University School of Law commencement ceremony. I am Patricia Wilson, the Associate Dean of the Law School. Dean Counselor wishes that he could be here, but he is away in Scotland with our program there. He has celebrated with the students already, but he sends his appreciation for all who have supported these students on their journey. What a wonderful morning this is. This is a time for memory and for celebration for what these students have accomplished thus far and anticipation for what they will accomplish in the future. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. To open our ceremony, I call on Mr. Kagan Baldry, a member of the graduating class, to ask a blessing on our time together. Please remain standing, graduates.
The gentlemen would please remove their hats. Please bow with me and pray to the triune God. O Lord, we come to you in your triune name, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. We stand in awe of your majesty, honor, glory, and kindness. Your kindness in authoring our stories and bringing us to this day, whether we recognize your sovereign hand or not. We thank you for blessing us with gifts, talents, and opportunities that all led us to this moment. We thank you for our families and friends, for we could not do this alone. And as we leave Baylor Law, we pray for Baylor Law, that our alma mater would live out her confession and craft not just capital L Baylor lawyers, but more importantly, capital C Christian lawyers. And I pray for her faculty and staff that they would be prepared for the task at hand and blessed in their endeavors. I pray for this class, that its members would have success, but above all, that they would know you, Lord. Let us be like the psalmist in Psalm 1, who meditates on your law day and night as we seek to practice the law in your name. And keep us from being like the heathen in Psalm 2, that rage against you and against your anointed. May we cling to Christ and glorify you. Amen.
Please be seated. Kagan, thank you. Kagan was selected by his classmates to give the invocation. Later, Michael Rowley, our highest ranking student this quarter, will give remarks on behalf of the class. As I look out, I see the joy on the faces of the graduates, their family, their friends, and with good reason. It has been a long journey, a journey that no doubt involved many trials, literally and figuratively, and triumphs. But graduates, as Kagan noted in his prayer, you have not arrived here alone. Along the way, you've had support from any number of family and friends who care deeply for you. So class, may I ask you to stand up, turn around, and express thanks to those who were key to bringing you to this point. Baylor Law, where fun goes to die. I hope you'll indulge me just a bit. I promise to keep it short, but I want to talk just a little bit about our program. Many years ago, one of our colleagues coined that phrase, Baylor Law, where fun goes to die. To be honest, I kind of resent that phrase. I think we have a lot of fun at Baylor Law. But, are you guys disagreeing with me? But to the extent it reflects that our program is rigorous and that we take great pride in how we train students to be highly competent, ethical lawyers who are identifiable as Baylor lawyers because of their knowledge, their practical skills, and their preparation for the matter at hand, and who understand that ours is a professional service. I take great pride in what we do at Baylor Law. To quote Marian Wright Edelman, founder of the Children's Defense Fund, service is the rent we pay for being. It is the very purpose of life and not something you do in your spare time. That is something we have instilled in our students. Indeed, service is critical to our mission as a faith-based law school, and we take our faith mission seriously. I want to turn our attention to another group that heeded the call to service, and that's our men and women who have served in the military. It is our practice at each commencement ceremony to recognize those individuals who provide for our national security and the protection of our rights. At this time, I ask all who served in any branch of the military, whether you're active, reserve, or retired, to stand so that we may thank you. Thank you. We're indeed grateful for your service. I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues who are on the stage. Their bios are in the program, and I encourage you to take time to read through those bios and to see how accomplished my colleagues are. But I am going to specifically introduce those that are on the stage party with just a little bit. Professor Kayla Landeros is one of our assistant professors. She teaches in the business and transactional area of our program. She will be announcing the names of the graduates. Professor Tom Featherston, who officially retires today. Professor Featherston will be presenting the class and giving them their diplomas. He has taught on the faculty for more than 40 years, teaching in the trusts and estates area. We specifically asked him to present the class, and the students were delighted to hear that Professor Featherston would be doing that. As many of you know, one of the highlights of earning a higher degree is receiving an academic hood. Having earned their Juris Doctor degrees, our graduates are eligible to receive the longer hood. Our tradition at Baylor is that the class chooses who will hood them, selecting from among the faculty and staff who have earned their Juris Doctor degrees. They have chosen well. Hooding our graduates are Professor Paul Yanowich, Professor Yanowich is one of our adjunct professors and a former assistant U.S. attorney. He teaches in the criminal law area as well as other courses as needed. I consider him our utility infielder. Professor Jim Underwood is the other professor chosen to hood our graduates. Professor Underwood teaches torts in the first year curriculum as well as upper quarter courses including complex litigation. Of course, those in the front on the stage are only a fraction of our faculty and staff colleagues. I'm going to ask our faculty and staff colleagues to stand so that we may recognize you. I am now honored to turn the program over to our highest ranking student, Michael Rowley, to offer his remarks. Congratulations, Michael. Baylor is known for being one of the most competitive law schools, so it is no small feat to be recognized as the highest ranking student. Michael?
Good morning. Those of you that know me well probably know that I would be more comfortable sitting in one of your seats than standing up here. But I am very grateful that you all voted for Kagan to give the invocation today. As my moot court partner and as my practice court partner, every time I've ever had to do anything like this during law school, he's sat next to me. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do when he goes off to East Texas and I go to Fort Worth. We'll have to figure that out. But truly, it is an honor to be able to speak to you this morning. As I've reflected on our experience over the last 2.5 years, I've been filled with gratitude. Being able to graduate from law school and take the bar and become a lawyer, these are all accomplishments and goals that I've had for years. They've been years in the making, and I'm sure each of you as well. But I think today is less about our accomplishments and more about reflecting on and appreciating the gifts that we've been given that have gotten us to today and made today possible. As I look out in the audience, I think I speak for all the graduates when I say that we could not have graduated law school successfully without the friends and family that are here today. I know, certainly in my case, I could not have graduated law school without my wife, Addison, and our 2 little boys. I think any success that I've had in law school can be attributed to her just as much as it can be to me. I'm grateful for all of her sacrifice and her consistent love and support throughout these last 2 years. I'm also grateful for the relationships that I've been able to build with each of you during the last 2.5 years. I think one of the clearest examples to me of the type of relationships that we have happened during our 5th quarter, our transactional quarter, where all of us have the same classes every day and our classes are focused on transactional law. It can be a more difficult quarter before practice court. And during that time, within a few weeks, we welcomed a baby boy into our family, and my wife's grandfather passed away back in Utah, and we had finals. So it was a joyful, emotional, and exhausting period for our family. But during that time, there was a group of our fellow graduates who quietly pooled their money together and gave us a little gift card for groceries. And although this was a very simple gesture, it meant a lot more to our family than I think any of you probably realized. During a time that felt very overwhelming for our family, it was a blessing to be able to recognize that we weren't doing law school alone, that we had a community around us. And that wasn't an isolated experience just for my family. Throughout this whole law school experience, I've watched as members of our class have stepped up for each other when we needed it. And I am grateful to graduate with a group of people and go through the highs and lows of law school with people that genuinely care about each other. I'm also very grateful to become a graduate of Baylor Law School and to be able to be a part of the Baylor Law legacy. I think everyone in the audience by now probably has heard about the rigorous demands of practice court, which I think is one of the things that sets our program apart from other law schools in the country. And I think one of the most meaningful experiences for me happened at practice court orientation, which happens the day before practice court starts. And it's where the practice court professors try to explain to us the reasons why they're about to give us endless readings and the very penetrating cold calls and the demanding advocacy exercises that we're about to go through for the next several months. But we learned at practice court orientation that practice court was created by a Baylor lawyer in the 1920s who lost his seat as a judge because he refused to join the Ku Klux Klan. And he, citing to Ezekiel chapter 22, verse 30, he wanted to create a generation of lawyers that had the tenacity and the fortitude to make up the hedge and stand in the gap, to step up for people in need and stand for truth. This is the legacy that we are blessed to be a part of as graduates of Baylor Law School. And this is our obligation as we transition from law students to attorneys. I'm grateful to graduate with people who have already been living that standard. I think seeing the leadership fellows and the public interest fellows, Tom and Yusuf and Noah and Grace and Lauren, who sacrificed significant amounts of time to be able to serve their fellow students and to serve the community here in Waco. I've also seen that in my good friend and practice court partner, Kagan. I've always been impressed with the way during law school he's set aside time to be able to step up for people in need, especially for me, and also to sacrifice time to be part of organizations that he believes in. He doesn't hesitate to stand for the truth. And that is what we are called to do as Baylor lawyers now. In Luke chapter 12, verse 48, Christ teaches that unto whomsoever much is given, of him much is required. I don't think there's many better phrases for what describes the privilege and responsibility that we have as Baylor lawyers, as getting a legal education from Baylor Law School. I'm grateful to graduate with a group of students who embody that principle, and I look forward to striving to live up to that standard with each of you every day as attorneys. Thank you, and congratulations to the Baylor Law Class of 2026.
Michael, thank you. Thank you for those words of gratitude and for reminding everyone that it really is a privilege to be able to serve as an attorney. I'm going to now introduce the graduation speaker. The class chose Professor Matt Horton to give the graduation address. Again, you have his bio in the program. You will note that Professor Horton serves as the director of our legal writing program. Because he teaches the first 2 writing courses required of all students, virtually all of our students learn the basics of legal writing from Professor Horton, giving them a foundation in legal writing that is unmatched in legal education. One fact about Dean Horton, or about Professor Horton in his bio, that I want to point out. Matt has earned black belts in 2 different disciplines of martial arts. So let's just say he's probably not the one to trifle with. With that, I will turn the podium over to Professor Horton.
Thank you, Dean Wilson, for the introduction. My colleagues, families and friends, and most of all, members of the graduating class. Families and friends, this day belongs to you too. Much of what these graduates carried through law school was possible because you carried something for them. Some of the graduates may remember the spring and summer of 2024 when the Legal Writing Center was under construction and we had no settled place to meet. So we met wherever the building would let us. Empty classrooms, the dean's conference room, occasionally the associate dean's office, which I happened to occupy that year, and which I can report is a physically poor place to learn legal writing. No offense, Dean Wilson. And there you were in borrowed rooms asking serious questions about a memo concerning an abnormally dangerous goose named Jaws. Families, yes, that was a real assignment. Your graduates can now advise you with professional confidence on goose liability. Of everything we taught them, the goose just has the best publicity. I also taught you that phrasal adjectives usually take hyphens, but we do not hyphenate abnormally dangerous goose. That is about as much grammar as this audience should carry for today. This is the 6th time a graduating class has asked me to speak at commencement, and it is the 6th time I have been overwhelmed by the honor. Anyone who has sat through my classes knows I am introverted. Anything worth saying usually comes only after I look inward first. Today, as I have done 5 times before, I'm going to tell you part of my story, but I want you to understand why. When I looked inward to prepare for this day, what I found there was you. Part of the story is mine. What I learned from it, I learned while I was your teacher. My father grew up working on a potato farm in Idaho. When he left the farm to join the Air Force, the farm hired 3 people to replace him. That was the standard in our house. Work so hard, it takes 3 people to replace you. I know what work looks like. I learned it early. I have never fully unlearned it. I do not tell you that as a tragic origin story. My father supported our family on a teacher's salary. We were not rich, but we did not starve. Still, I grew up believing that work was how a person proved his worth. I had one dream. I wanted to be a sports writer for the Dallas Cowboys. By 1995, I was halfway there. I was a sports writer in Missouri. I was also a sports information director at a college. 2 jobs at once because I was willing to work hard enough to prove I belonged in the profession I wanted. One job covered the story, the other promoted the institution. Counting travel, some weeks ran past 100 hours. According to my father's arithmetic, my worth was finally heading in the right direction. And then it broke. There was no dramatic moment, just the slow certainty that I could not hold it together, and underneath that, a worse fear. If I failed at the work, I had failed at the only thing that made me worth anything. So I quit both jobs. I moved to Dallas-Fort Worth, where the Cowboys were. 3 weeks after I arrived, I totaled my car. No job, no plan, and now no car. So naturally, I thought, law school. Why law school? The genuine answer is, I don't know. But one rainy day, in a replacement car, I went looking for SMU's law school. I got lost, and I never found it. On the way back, I passed an exit for the other law school in town, Texas Wesleyan, then in Irving. So I took the exit. I found the building. I got out of the car. I looked up, and there stood Texas Stadium, then home of the Dallas Cowboys. I said, well, that's a sign. And in my defense, it was a very large sign. The dream stood on one side of the highway, the future stood on the other. I walked into the building on my side of the road. I did not know it then, but that was not a replacement dream. It was a different education. Law school turned up a skill I did not know I had, legal research. I followed that skill into law librarianship, which is about as far from covering the Dallas Cowboys as a career can get. And law librarianship led me to Baylor Law School and Baylor University. I came to Baylor to teach the skill I had learned to use. Baylor trusted me with responsibility before I was sure I had earned it. So I did what I knew how to do. I worked. I worked to prove I belonged at this law school. I worked to prove that the trust placed in me had not been a mistake. I love Baylor Law School and Baylor University, but for reasons that are different than yours. I do not have a degree with either name on it, but I received my education from both. Again and again, someone handed me something real and let me carry it. I had genuine mentors. They gave me weight, and they watched what I could do with it. But here is what I did not understand at first. They were not giving me weight so I could prove I belonged. They were giving me weight that belonged to someone else. Students, a program, a law school, a university, even a profession. That was the education Baylor gave me. The work was not proof. The work was responsibility. For a long time, I could not tell the difference. When work becomes proof, it eventually turns on you. It turns you inward. Responsibility points toward the person counting on you. The law has weight. It is entrusted responsibility, holding something that belongs to someone else. Some of you have felt it already in our legal clinics, sitting across from someone who could not afford a lawyer. That was not a memo about a goose. That was a real problem belonging to a real person, and when you worked to help that person, you carried something that was not your own. The question this profession will ask of you is not whether you are willing to work. Baylor has tested that already, repeatedly, with enthusiasm. The question is whether you can be trusted with the weight. Here's the part we do not like to say out loud. Lawyers who spend their careers proving themselves do not just wear themselves down. They quietly fail the people who are counting on them. I can tell you what that looks like because I've spent a career grading it. A memo written to impress the grader reads differently from a memo written to help the reader. The writing gets louder, but the answer gets buried. The document serves the writer. Someday your reader will not be a professor holding a red pen. It will be a client holding a problem, and the client pays for it. I would like to tell you I have this figured out. I do not. All these years later, I still catch myself working to prove I belong instead of working to carry something for someone else. What has changed is that I usually know which one I'm doing and most days I can choose. Which brings me back to you. When most of you arrived, I was interim associate dean. Again, I had been trusted with responsibility before I was sure I had earned it. And I fell straight back into the oldest habit I had. I worked to prove I deserved the responsibility instead of asking whether my work was serving the people entrusted to me. Then you met me, because I was still teaching. Half-finished building, borrowed rooms. You were trying to survive civil procedure, contracts, torts, and this weird goose problem. I could have gone through the motions that year, and you would not let me. You asked real questions. You made me explain things better than I had explained them in years. You wanted to know why one authority outweighed another, and whether Jaws was truly abnormally dangerous or merely misunderstood. One of you turned the entire assignment into a wild goose chase joke that I cannot explain to your families, and I just shut my office door because I was laughing too hard to breathe. You were not being difficult. You were doing the work. And without knowing it, you handed me something worth carrying. You did not need me to perform teaching. You needed me to teach. In a season when it would have been easy to disappear into a title, you called me back to the people on the other side of the work. That is what this class did for me. And it's why I told you the story on your day. You're already in it. You are graduating from a law school that people in this profession recognize quickly. I know how fast a name can answer a question before you have said a word. You will walk into rooms where that happens, and many times the answer will run in your favor. They will look at you and think, Baylor lawyer, prepared, disciplined, trained under pressure. I have watched Baylor lawyers enter this profession for 26 years. Now, notice what I just did. I handed you the very thing I just spent this whole speech warning you about. Proof that you belong, and the temptation to treat that as proof of your worth. So let me be precise. The degree you will hold in a few minutes answers whether you belong. Your worth was never the question, but no degree can answer whether you can be trusted with the weight. Nobody's opinion of your school can answer that. Nobody's opinion of you can answer that. Only the work answers it, one client at a time. You will have to prove your work. You do not have to prove your worth. And do not wait to feel ready before you pick up the responsibility. Nobody in this room ever felt ready. Trained is not the same as ready, and trained is enough. Soon, someone will hand you a case, a contract, a criminal indictment, a family's problem, an unspoken fear. When it gets heavy, and it will, ask 3 questions. First, whose weight is this? If what you are carrying is your reputation, your standing, or your need to look capable, set that down. That is not the work you were given. Second, what does this moment need from me? Sometimes it needs more hours. Sometimes it needs you to ask for help. Sometimes it needs the 3 hardest words in this profession. I don't know. That is not weakness. That is judgment. Third, who handed it to me? Someone trusted you with it. Carry it like you know that. When you fail along the way, and you will, remember that failure is not evidence that you do not belong. Sometimes getting lost in the rain just puts you on a different road. On your journey, do not forget the people who came here to watch you today. They have carried weight for you for years, much of it where you could not see it. The worry, the patience, the rearranged schedules, the quiet belief that you could do this. They believed in you long before this degree could prove anything. In a few minutes, they are going to be the loudest people in this room. Find them, and thank them. Now, one more thing about Jaws, the abnormally dangerous goose. Why no hyphen? None of you? Actually, I don't know. It's just the way we do it. Last thing. My father measured a person by how many people it took to replace him, but the law does not need you to be irreplaceable. It needs you to be trustworthy. The law is not yours to possess. It is yours to carry for someone else. Go, carry it well. That is who you are now.
Professor Corden, thank you for those words. I think remembering that you don't know everything and being able to say, I don't know, is really a sign of confidence. So I hope you'll take Professor Corden's words to heart, including working for your clients. Now it is time for the conferral of degrees. Graduates, please stand. And I call on Professor Tom Featherston for the presentation of the class.
Thank you. Dean Wilson, each of the candidates before you has completed the requirements of the degree of Juris Doctor as prescribed by the faculty of the School of Law and Baylor University, authorized under the authority of the Board of Regents. And as my last task as a member of the faculty, it's my pleasure to present the class to you for the conferral of the degree Juris Doctor.
Thank you, Professor Featherston, and congratulations on officially being about 20 minutes from retirement. Each of you has completed the requirements for the degree of Juris Doctor as prescribed by the Baylor University School of Law. Upon certification of the faculty of the law school and on behalf of the Baylor University Board of Regents, it is my pleasure to confer upon you the degree of Juris Doctor. We will now proceed to the awarding of the diplomas and the hooding of each of our graduates. Family and friends, while we recognize that this ceremony is in a setting that is beautiful, it's a beautiful church, and it certainly is one that requires an appropriate degree of respect and decorum. Nonetheless, we have a tradition at Baylor Law School. When the name of your loved one is called, you're encouraged. As I think you probably already have a hint of, you're encouraged to make as much noise as you can. And make no mistake about it, while we're often warned about judging others, we are totally judging you today. In fact, we are ranking you based on the degree of enthusiasm you show for your graduate. If you are proud of them, and I know you are, we encourage you, let your joy ring out. So with that, let us begin.
Johnny Kagan Baldry, cum laude. The next graduate earned a special distinction in litigation, Ryan Elizabeth Behringer, summa cum laude. Joseph Whittaker Ben. Caroline Faith Bizarro. John Andrew Calvert. Caitlin Aline Charles. Evan Andres Gaspar de Alba. Alex Ryan Glass, magna cum laude. Evan Andrew Goodman. Elena Imani Gray Schmiedlin. The next graduate is a Leadership Development Fellow, Yusuf Hashmi. Evan Thomas Hatchett. Julia Ignacia Inserpe Diaz, cum laude. Brooke Nicole Johnson. Jake William Kayla. The next graduate is a Leadership Development Fellow, Thomas Charles Francis Malaspina. The next graduate earned a special distinction in business planning and in estate planning, Jared Lyndall Miller, summa cum laude. The next graduate is a Public Interest Fellow, Lauren Emily Monroe. The next graduate is a Public Interest Fellow, Grace Marie Neal, cum laude. Clara Provenzi. The next graduate earned a special distinction in intellectual property, Aaron Troy Ridinger. Michael Claude Rowley, summa cum laude, highest ranking student of the graduating class. Natalie Suzanne Stroud, cum laude. The next graduate is a Public Interest Fellow, Noah Dean Sullivan. Ann Thurman. Callum Lewis Wright, summa cum laude. Mason Gabriel Wyatt.
Congratulations again, and I want to say, families, you all did really, really well. You might have noticed that I looked down at my watch at one point. That's because I was getting a notification about the decibels and my hearing, so well done, well done. So in just a moment, we will close the formal part of our celebration. Just a few last-minute notes. First, the celebration continues at the Law Center. Immediately following our adjournment, there is a reception hosted by the Baylor Law Alumni Association where your graduates and you can enjoy refreshments, and they can show you where they have spent so much of their time and all the places where they shed blood, tears, whatever. Second, we will recess in just a moment. I ask that you please remain seated as we recess because we're going to do this seemingly odd thing where we're going to recess down the middle aisle. We're going to go out those doors back there, and then we're going to come right back in. We are going to take a group picture on the steps here. One favor to ask of you all, we have a professional photographer who is going to get a group shot. Please let the photographer get the group shot. But my promise to you is if you will do that, Let our photographer go first. The graduates will stand in place for a couple minutes to let you get your shot of the graduating class. So if you will just do that, we can get done efficiently and then get on with the celebration at the Law Center. Before we end, I'd like to thank those who were instrumental in organizing the graduation. That includes our registrars, Jerry Cunningham, Lauren Porter, and Susie Daniel. Nick Texera, who does all things graphic so that the program is his work. Rick Soul and Ricky Levesky and Lori Lind, who are our IT professionals. I also want to thank from the church, First Baptist Waco, Stephen Volek and other members of the staff at the church who have helped prepare for this. Our wonderful pianist, Chris Womack, as well as our photographer, Nick Klein. In addition, I want to thank our student workers who are greeting you as you came in, Liv Tantalo and Kinley Terry. As we end, I'd like to remind the graduates once again the importance of service and doing well. I'd like to read a quote from the Anglican Bishop Desmond Tutu. He said, "Do your bit of good where you are. It is those bits of good put together that overwhelm the world." Graduates, you're ready to represent Baylor Law School well. Congratulations.